to thank federal employees for giving not only to your charity and your support, but just for participating in the CFC overall. You know, the campaign has been going on for 60 years, and a lot of charities, a lot of federal employees have worked together. And we just want to acknowledge the campaign overall, not only your work, but the campaign that raises funds for a bunch of different charities. So remember that in your presentation, please. Anything else, Antonia, that I need to?
I think that if you do not have a background with your CFC code or organization name, please change your name on Zoom, and that way everybody is aware of what organization you are with and what your CFC code is, so that way they can easily give to you if what you're speaking about speaks to them.
And Antonia, this is
Yes.
Dave DeBruin. Can you see mine? I included as requested Compassion International and also my CFC code in my name. Is that showing up?
It's not showing up. I just see David DeBruin, and your screen, it looks like it's kind of blocked.
Like, is there a thumb or a sticky note?
There you go. That's
Hi,
better.
David.
Okay. I'm having,
Jen, I'm ready.
My computer died, and so now I'm trying to work through my iPad.
And there are a couple of our charities, I believe, that are not showing up in that they're not on yet. So I don't know if they had someone else representing for them, because the names I do not recognize.
Okay.
So I guess I'm going to go ahead and just admit everybody else in at this
let's
point.
go ahead. We're 1 minute after, and so that's great.
Yeah.
Go ahead and admit everybody, Antonia. And I do want to acknowledge to everybody joining us today. It looks like people are coming in. Welcome everybody to our second Cause Week conversation. If you could mute yourself, please, we would definitely appreciate if everybody would stay on mute until able to speak. But I did want to acknowledge that we are streaming this live on our YouTube channel today. So everybody, welcome to our second ever live streaming event, but our first live streaming for our weekly Cause conversation discussing human rights. Mike, would you like to go ahead and
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for everybody for joining us. We are on track to have one of these every week for the Cause Week that the CFC recognizes for that week. And the plan is to keep this at a tight 40, 45 minutes so you can get on to your next Zoom meeting in an hour, right? So the plan, what we'd like to do is to begin with, and before we start talking with the charities, we'd like to have all the federal employees make sure that they go to givecfc.org, click on the donate page, and start their account. And if you have any problems, any questions while you're doing this, we want to make sure that those questions get answered. It's an important component for coordinators and federal employees to get on and start their account. You don't have to give today, but Jen's going to take you on to her account, and we're going to kind of go through how it works. The Combined Federal Campaign has a state-of-the-art giving site. The search capabilities are something that we want to acknowledge near the end of this presentation. And so whether your organization wants to, or whether you want to support an organization that's on this call, or another organization or another cause, please, do that during this time. So one thing Jen wants to point out is the profile settings. And when you go and click on your profile settings, make sure that your organization and you have the correct unit code, and you do that by putting in your department, your agency, and your office. One easy way to do that is just putting in your 6-digit office code. So Jen put in and chose one for the Department of Health and Human Services, Administration of Community Living. But let's say she was from a different agency, and she put in, Jen put A9XJJT. And if you put that in and click lookup, you can confirm the changes. A completely new organization is going to come up, and Jen, you might have to go back to the homepage and click on your account again. But setting your profile settings and knowing what this code is. So now if Jen just goes down and puts in the A9XJJT, it will update to that code automatically, and it'll go back to the account and show the profile settings that has been changed, and now you're at I think it's Barksdale. Well,
Yeah, it's
anyway,
not taking the way that you suggested it was.
Try it one more time. Just put in the code. Thanks. So while we try to do that, the format today is we're going to have a guest speaker from Solidarity Center to talk about human rights, internationally recognized subject matter. It's XJJT. It should look up XJJT. There it is. So just notice that as she put in that code, it automatically transferred from where she was at the other base to a new one at Barksdale. If you know your code and you go to your individual, and you can do it today, and we can help you get your code today too in the chat. Federal employees, please start your account and manage that. If you're a coordinator, these are going to be the questions that you're going to answer with your colleagues. If you're a donor, this is a place where you go to give your gift each year through the Combined Federal Campaign. I want to thank all our participating charities. Each of the charities, after we have our guest speaker, is going to have 2 minutes to talk about their programs, what they're doing with CFC funds to support human rights, and what the needs are, the issues are around this very, very important cause week. But I'd like to begin by welcoming our guest speaker. Neha Misra is the Migration and Human Trafficking Senior Specialist at the Solidarity Center. Neha has managed the Solidarity Center's counter-trafficking in persons and labor migration and democracy programs. Before joining Solidarity Center, Neha was a federal employee. She was a senior attorney with the U.S. Department of Justice. And while at Justice, she also served as the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 3525. So she understands intuitively the link between the Combined Federal Campaign and federal employees. Neha received her law degree from the Washington College of Law at the American University in DC, go Eagles, where she focused her studies on international human rights law, and she also has a Bachelor of Science degree in International Business Economics and Public Policy from Indiana University. As a subject matter expert, Neha, on several occasions, has provided testimony to the U.S. House of Representatives on human trafficking and forced labor. And we're honored to have you here and talking about this very important cause, human rights. Welcome, Neha.
Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you to the CFC for having me today. And especially thank you to the federal government employees for all of your generosity through the years in supporting charities. As Michael mentioned, I used to be a federal government employee, and I was also a local president of the American Federation of Government Employees. So I'm very grateful to all the work that you all are doing, and also just for your generosity during the campaign. So I'm going to start today with a little bit of a story. I want to share the story of, next slide, the story of Sabina. Sabina is from Bangladesh and works in Jordan as a domestic worker. And we use the term domestic worker to describe someone who works in someone's home, whether they're a house cleaner, taking care of someone's children, or the elderly, they're a domestic worker. And Sabina has worked in Jordan for the past 8 years, sending money home each month to her mother, her sister, and her 11-year-old son, who rely on her to survive.
Yeah.
But with the COVID, with the,
Dime.
If everyone could mute themselves, thank you very much.
but with the COVID-19 crisis, she's been out of work for months. She told my colleague at the Solidarity Center that she hasn't. Sorry, could people please type?
Neha, you're muted now.
Sorry, thank you. There's always glitches, right, in Zoom calls. Hopefully that's it. Okay. So Sabina told my colleague in our office in Jordan that she hadn't eaten for days, and neither had her small son or family. And because she's an immigrant, the Jordanian government is denying her social services, income support, and other benefits that they're providing to their citizens during the pandemic. Just like Sabina, all of us are facing increasing challenges to our human rights, from climate change, inequality, conflict and division, growing authoritarianism, and of course the pandemic that we're all living through right now. Our human rights are being challenged like never before. Human rights are rights we have simply because we exist as human beings. These universal rights are inherent to all of us, regardless of nationality, gender, race, or ethnic origin, sexual orientation, religion, language, or any other status. They range from the most fundamental, the right to life, to those that make our life worth living, such as the rights to food, education, work with dignity, health, and liberty. As the Solidarity Center, we know that worker rights are human rights. What's more important than being able to provide with your family and have dignity as you're working? As noted by the United Nations human rights expert, as his quote's on my screen, labor rights are human rights, and the ability to exercise these rights in the workplace is a prerequisite for workers to enjoy a broad range of other rights, whether economic, social, cultural, political, or otherwise. In other words, unless we have dignity in our work and the ability to stand up for our rights in the workplace, our other human rights will suffer. The global scourge of human trafficking is a brutal example of how the lack of worker rights leads to greater human rights abuses. When people hear the term human trafficking, they usually think of organized crime, forcing young women and children into forced prostitution or other forms of exploitation. In fact, though, the majority of people around the world who are trafficked for forced labor. Out of the almost 25 million people trapped in forced labor, 16 million people are exploited in the private sector. And this means by employers, businesses, companies, international, multinational corporations in sectors such as domestic work, construction, agriculture, and 4.8 million people are in forced sexual exploitation, and 4 million persons are in forced labor imposed by states. The best example is Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan forces its citizens to pick cotton to make the shirts and the clothing that we all wear. Trafficking for forced labor results from the absence of human rights and effective governance. It often occurs in countries that restrict civic freedoms, have weak rule of law, and prevent the exercise of the right to freedom of speech, assembly, and association, including the right to form or join a trade union to represent worker interests. Some examples in my last minute, or 3 minutes, I think, that I have. I want to give you some examples of human trafficking that we see in the United States and that we see around the world. And all of the examples that I'm going to give you are people become vulnerable because of the lack of human rights or the lack of worker rights. So, for example, there's an ethnic group in Bangladesh or in Burma called the Rohingya. The Rohingya have been denied human rights for centuries in Burma. They're not allowed to have Burmese citizenship. They're stateless, basically. And because of that status, they're denied all sorts of protections from the government. So they usually migrate for work. Thousands of Rohingya refugees have migrated to Malaysia to work in agriculture, in palm oil, for example. And if you ever look at the ingredients in products, you'll see that in any food you eat, palm oil is a significant ingredient in a lot of the foods that we eat. And yet there are millions of workers around the world, including Rohingya refugees, who are in forced labor to get that palm oil that goes into the products we make. We've also seen in the United States after Hurricane Katrina, there was a need to help rebuild some shipyards in New Orleans and along the Gulf Coast. There was a company there called Signal that decided to bring in workers from India. And these were skilled workers. They were welders, etc. And the welders, these Indian migrant workers, were told that they would be given a green card when they came to the United States. In truth, though, the visa that they came under was a guest worker visa. It was a non-immigrant visa where they were temporarily in the United States. These workers paid thousands of dollars to a labor recruiter in order to get those jobs because, again, they thought they were having a pathway to residency in the United States and that they would eventually be able to bring their families. They ended up in situations of forced labor where they were paid way below the minimum wage. They were not allowed to leave the compound where they were working. And if they dared complain, the employer said they were going to report them to ICE and have them deported. Those workers thankfully ended up being rescued by a church in the community. They were able somehow to go to church, and some people in the church found out about them and rescued them. And eventually they were given what's called a T visa in the United States, where they were eventually allowed to stay. And a civil suit was brought against the company, and they were given damages. We also see, I'll end with this example, time and time again in the United States and around the world, domestic workers, again, people who work in people's homes, being extremely vulnerable to all forms of human trafficking. And this is the thing I wanted to mention too. A lot of times, you'll hear people talk about trafficking for forced prostitution or sexual exploitation, trafficking for forced labor. But I want to tell you that these are all a fine line. I know a lot of workers who've been trafficked into forced labor who also face sexual exploitation. And this is what we see for domestic workers who work in people's homes. Because they work in people's homes, they're very vulnerable to sexual harassment, rape, gender-based violence, but also to being forced to work around the clock, having their wages withheld and denied. And we see a lot of cases of human trafficking of domestic workers in the United States and around the world. So I think I'm out of time, so I'm just going to end there. And if we have time for questions, I'd love to hear them. But again, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for educating us on the human rights challenges, and especially how clothes, food, services, so many things that we enjoy sometimes are the result of these human rights deprivations. So we're going to go back to and have Jennifer go back to the giving site. But first, I'd like to open it up. Does anybody have any questions for Neha? We are going to come to some of the other charities and give them 2 minutes to talk about what their services are, what their programs are around human rights. But would anybody like to unmute themselves and ask Neha a question? We have 8 other charities that are joining us: Habitat for Humanity from Anchorage, Unlocking Doors, Community Shares of Greater Cincinnati, the Black United Fund of Illinois, Tiffany Thomas, Compassion International, Catholic Charities, and the Solidarity Center. So we're going to go in that order. Antonia is going to call each of you, and as we showed, Jennifer's going back to the website and also putting in a new lookup. So again, just putting in your 6-digit code for federal employees. Did I give that the wrong code? MT, maybe it's 5H, Jennifer. How do I do that wrong to you? This is the is M3YTSH, and it didn't come up, huh? So, oh, that one, okay. So it's very important, federal employees, to know your code. That's what we're doing here. We're talking about the issue. We're talking about how you give and setting up your profile. And I think having a subject matter expert like Neha, who's testified, who also, it's incredible. She's been a federal employee. She's been head of a federal employee union. She's worked at a nonprofit, probably couldn't be a more qualified person to talk during a CFC event. And the knowledge that you shared with us, Neha, was tremendously impressive. Thank you very much for starting this off. So the charities, as we start I'll call you, or Antonia will proctor this. I will also put when you have 30 seconds left, I will put a timer up in my screen, so you know that we're getting close to time. So
thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Antonia? So our first, we'll go ahead and go into Arena Lester with the Solidarity Center to speak on what they do. Neha works with Solidarity Center, so she kind of spoke on human rights as a whole, and we'd like to hear from Arena on what the Solidarity Center does regarding human rights.
Okay,
thank you.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you, Neha, again for your great introduction to the cause of the week and obviously your work. My name is Irina Lester, and I'm the lead development officer at the Solidarity Center, the largest US-based worker rights organization in the world. The Solidarity Center works in more than 60 countries with a focus on the global south, such as countries like Bangladesh, Thailand, Georgia, Mexico, and many others. We believe that worker rights are human rights. Our mission is to empower workers to raise their voice for dignity on the job, justice in their communities, and greater equality in the global economy. Our work looks different in every country and ranges from supporting migrant workers with legal assistance over advocacy against gender-based violence and harassment at the workplace through health and safety training. Next slide, please. Many of you might remember the many fires and factory collapses in Bangladesh in 2012 and beyond. There was a lot of media coverage during this time. 4 million garment workers, mostly women, work in 5,000 factories across Bangladesh, making the country's 25 billion garment industry the world's second largest after China. Wages are the lowest among major garment manufacturing nations, which often you will actually see Bangladesh a lot of times on your labels on your daily clothes. The workers receive few or no benefits and often struggle to support families, and many risk their lives to make a living. The pictures you see right now, right there, are from massive fires at apparel factories or factory collapses where you might remember the infamously known Rana Plaza incident where 2,500 were injured, losing limbs and thousands more severely traumatized. People were trapped when fire broke out in the warehouse. Workers scrambled toward the roof, jumped from upper floors, or were trampled by their panic-stricken co-workers. Next slide. The next slide, Nia. The Solidarity Center supports those apparel workers throughout Bangladesh to demand that multinational corporations respect their human rights and improve fire and safety standards within these factories. When workers stand together, they can make their voices heard without fear. Next slide, Nia. Next slide. Okay. The Solidarity Center supports those workers throughout Bangladesh, as I said, and we have trained more than 6,000 workers on fire safety, helping to empower factory floor level workers to monitor the hazardous working conditions. So with that, thank you, Feds, for considering the Solidarity Center with the CFC number 58419. With your support, you can help improve working conditions for all workers worldwide. Whether you give to the Solidarity Center with the CFC 58419 or another cause close to your heart, thank you so much for making change possible.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you very much for joining us. That was a wonderful presentation, and we are looking forward to having the other charities join us. And you don't necessarily, in fact, I don't think we have any other charities with slides. Irina was able to do that because we had Neha doing the presentation to begin with. So I think we're going to turn off the screen, Jen, and or you want to keep it on here? And Antonia, do you want to go to the next nonprofit?
Yes. Our next nonprofit that we have is Habitat for Humanity in Anchorage, Alaska. And we have Laura Gutierrez. Laura, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Gutierrez, and I represent Habitat for Humanity Anchorage, and I'm coming to you virtually from one of our housing projects in Anchorage, Alaska. First, I'd like to say thank you to the CFC campaign for the opportunity to connect with you and highlight the important work our charity does. The CFC campaign plays a vital role in providing volunteers and financial support to enable Habitat for Humanity to build homes and empower families through homeownership. I'd like to tell you a quick story. The image behind me is a photo of a letter written by a 12-year-old man named Wesley, who helped his parents apply for a home through Habitat for Humanity. He highlights that they live in a very small home that serves as a place of learning and a place to play with his 2 siblings. He aspires to become a doctor, but struggles to learn because, as he puts it, he can't think straight because his siblings are with him 24/7. And it's important for him to get good grades, and he needs a quiet place to study. He shared that his parents work hard to provide as small business owners, and the only thing they struggle with is being able to afford a home big enough for his family. But his wishes are about to come true because Wesley's family will be handed the keys to their 4-bedroom home next month. We're very excited for them. And this was made possible because of the volunteers and financial support that Habitat for Humanity received from the CFC campaign last year. And I'm calling on the CFC campaign again to help more families like Wesley have access to a safe place to learn and grow. And now more than ever, COVID-19 has reminded all of us that home is much more than just a roof. Housing is a human right and a catalyst for all other fundamental rights. Please consider making a pledge to a charity that is close to your heart And thank you for your time, and I wish you all good health.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what a wonderful story, and it's absolutely what the CFC can do. Those combined gifts that you get through that you and your colleagues, federal employees, put together is not like a one-time gift going directly to a website. It's something where there are thousands and thousands of dollars. Habitat for Humanity and other charities can make significant program changes and commitments that they couldn't otherwise make because the size of the combined gift that they get through the CFC. So excellent. Thank you very much. Antonia?
Thank you. The next charity that we have is coming out of North Texas, and it is Karen Zahalik with Unlocking Doors.
Hello, my name is Karen Zahalik, and I'm the Director of Administration and Operations for Unlocking Doors. Unlocking Doors coordinates reentry for anyone 17 years or older who has a criminal background. We help them find a future of self-sufficiency that is crime-free through our unique and duplicated model called reentry brokerage. We assess the individual's various needs and their risk for reoffending. We create a comprehensive, individualized plan, including and prioritizing all of their needs. And then we refer the individuals to one or more of our network partner providers, and we're almost at 300 who provide the needed services. So whatever an individual needs, we partner with someone that can meet that need, whether it is housing, employment, transportation, healthcare, mental health care, substance abuse, clothing, continuing education, trades training, and on and on. We have a partner for that. We don't discriminate against any offense or the time of offense. Our success is demonstrated in our clients' recidivism rate, which is currently at 8%. The 3-year recidivism rate in the state of Texas is 20% and ranges between 40 and 64% across the United States. We're headquartered in Dallas. We have a satellite office in Fort Worth, and we have resource contacts across the state. Human rights and social justice is a concept of fair and just relations between an individual and society, most often measured by equal opportunity. A state of fairness in which individuals are treated similarly, unhampered by artificial barriers or prejudice. This concept is the heart of Unlocking Doors' mission and purpose. Thank you, CFC, for this opportunity. To all employees, please give to any and all of the causes you support. And our campaign number is 23700. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. That was, the recidivism rate, that's very impressive. Unlocking Doors has. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Hopefully all the feds can see as we're going through these presentations, I'm trying to show everybody how to search and find these organizations or any organization. There's lots of different ways to search. And if our federal employees would drop into the chat what state and agency you're coming to us from, that would be really helpful and wonderful to have you guys engage.
Or if they could put in their 6-digit code. It's one of the things that we want for your office code. If you could put that in there, that would be wonderful, because we're trying to make sure through this, it's kind of a lunch and learn, that we make sure federal employees know what their codes are. And if you're a coordinator, that's important for training your colleagues. If you're a donor, if you are a giver, it's important that gets recorded to your office. So Antonia?
Next we have, coming out of the Indiana, Kentucky, and Southwestern Ohio zone, community shares of Greater Cincinnati, Mr. Dwayne Gordon.
Well, thank you all for your support. Community Shares is a national movement that started in the 70s when leaders in the Midwest realized large chunks of their philanthropic community, specifically social justice and environmental justice charities, are left out of the traditional United Way workplace funding model, and they established Community Shares as an alternative federation of charities. We have 16 affiliates across 14 states, 8 of which are participating in the CFC this year, along with several of our federated member charities across those communities. Statewide, Tennessee, Illinois, Wisconsin, Montana, and Nebraska, and regionally in Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, and us at Community Shares of Greater Cincinnati, which includes Northern Kentucky and Southeast Indiana, CFC code 92615, and our local federation members, Planned Parenthood, Southwest Ohio, and League of Women Voters, Cincinnati. Community Shares accepts member charities that work in the fields of social justice, economic justice, and environmental justice, including animal welfare. We provide those charities fundraising through local workplace campaigns, continual training and continuous improvement and nonprofit excellence to build their capacity, and advocacy services for changes in local policy and laws around human rights. In addition, we provide fiscal agency services to incubate and mentor emerging social justice charities. We're the local federation proclaiming Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, Women's Lives Matter, Queer Lives Matter, Immigrants' Lives Matter, the marginalized in our communities matter, and these are the up and support with your help. So thank you again for using the CFC to support whatever charities are of your choice, because philanthropy also matters.
Thank you, Dwayne. As somebody that's worked with federations for a long time, Community Shares is a wonderful nationwide organization, and we really appreciate you jumping on and sharing that with us during Human Rights Week. Antonia?
Next we have, coming out of Midwestern CFC zone, is Black United Fund of Illinois and Miss Carolyn Day.
Carolyn, you may still be muted. You might have to unmute yourself.
Are you on with us, Karen?
Let's skip to the next one.
Okay.
And
next we have out of the Indiana, Kentucky, and Southwestern Ohio zone, United Negro College Fund, Miss Tiffany Thomas.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
UNCF's mission is to build a nationally robust, recognized pipeline of who, because of UNCF's support, become highly qualified college graduates, and also to ensure that our third of historically Black colleges and universities is a respected model of best practices. And our goal is moving students to and through college with no debt or low debt. UNCF, in its 76-year history, has graduated nearly 500 million students who are primarily African-American, but also representative of other minority populations, students of color. Right now, our students and our institutions are grappling with the ramifications of two pandemics, actually, one being the pandemic of COVID-19, and second being the revealing of systemic injustices in the criminal justice system. And so for our 76 years, we have provided our HBCUs with the essential resources to educate generations of African-American minority students. And right now, in particularly for African-American students who are 3 times more likely to come from low-income homes and also be first-generation college students, the support from the community UNCF is very crucial. UNCF actually provides financial aid to students, and the only other organization or entity that provides more financial aid to students is actually the federal government. So we are second to the federal government in providing aid to minority students. And so right now we face a very unprecedented time in our history. Every day, COVID-19 exacerbates the challenges of our students and our institutions. And so UNCF's national team is working to respond quickly to evolving higher education needs and to help the 60,000 plus students succeed in the face of these mounting obstacles. And so UNCF has had a relationship with CFC for decades, and we thank you for continuing to support us. We ask that, of course, you support whatever organizations are near and dear to your heart. And at the same time, please consider UNCF in supporting minority higher education. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tiffany.
so much.
Yeah, go ahead, Antonio.
And then next we have out of the Midwestern Combined Federal Campaign Zone, Compassion International, Mr. Dave DeBruin.
Thank you for this opportunity to present today. My name is Dave DeBruin, and I'm a volunteer with Compassion International. Compassion is a child development program that helps release children from poverty in Jesus' name. Compassion is first Christ-centered. We help the poorest of the poor, the children in greatest need, without ulterior motives, because we are a love thy neighbor ministry. Next, we are church-based. We do all our work through partnership with thousands of local churches in 25 of the poorest developing countries around the world. And third, we are child-focused. Through our holistic child development model, we blend physical, social, economical, and spiritual care together to help children in poverty fully mature in every facet of life and transcend what is often generational legacy of poverty. It is important that these children are known and they are then protected because they are known and watched. Funds raised with your help the children attend school, receive safe drinking water, and when necessary, provide them food. Our program, we are always acknowledging the value of each individual and protecting those human rights. Compassion CFC number is 10522. Thank you to the CFC for the opportunity to present today. And I encourage each of you to make a donation to support Compassion International 10522 or another cause that really supports your desires. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you so much, Dave. Next, we have out of the Northern Light Zone, the Catholic Charities of the Diocese of St. Cloud. And that is, I don't have a name for that person.
I think it's Bobby
Catholic
Madison.
Charities?
Yeah. Bobby, are you here from the Catholic Charities of St. Cloud? Okay, and I think we started with Arena, so I think that gets us
I don't
through, right?
see a
Antonio?
body in the on the participants list, Mike.
You do?
Was there any charities that we missed? Did anybody join us late? We did have a couple people jump in towards the end.
So and note this: federal employees and charities. Those two charities that didn't show up will be contacted by their LSCCs, and we want to make sure that you understand, federal employees, when we have events, virtual events, charities that are invited and RSVP. If they do not show, there will be a conversation between them and the local feds, possibly barring them from attending future events, or at least maybe OPM requires some kind of policy that if there's a no-show after you RSVP, that there's some ramifications. So it's not going to happen to federal employees at their events, we hope, but if it does happen, we definitely have tools to make sure that the charities are don't do it twice. So I want to thank everybody. I think I really liked what United Negro College Fund said, Tiffany, joining the twin pandemics of not only COVID-19, but also some of the racial injustice in the justice system was very important. I thought you did very well educating at least me, reminding me of that, because that is a truism. But I thought the conversation went well. Does anybody have any questions for the charities? You have a expert panel that you might want to share with these experts.
Mike, I wanted to just let the charities know real quick that I did just drop into the chat the charity resource page. This year, OPM has centralized the website, givecfc.org, and at the bottom of the page, you're going to find charity resources. So this is where you would go and find the logo or other tools, charity information, the engagement guide, etc., on how to be successful in presenting, promoting yourself. Get out there on social media, like our pages. We can't promote one charity over another, but you guys can certainly. It's Human Rights Week. Go grab a Facebook page of one of ours and and grab a post and share it and say, you know, whether you're giving to our organization or any organization, CFC code 58419. Thank you, feds, for giving, for considering CFC as your pathway for giving back to the cause that you care about. Grab our post, share them, go to this page. There's lots of resources out here for you guys.
Thank you, Jen. So we are, you know, we promised to keep this to a tight 45 minutes. Next week's Cause Week conversation, Lunch and Learn, is going to be around the cause of eradicating poverty. Another critical issue that we're supporting the CFC is recognizing next week, and we look forward to seeing everybody here. I think this went very well. I think the YouTube streaming is an exciting development, and I want to go back and recognize Neha for joining us and being our first guest speaker, our subject matter expert. You know, couldn't be any more qualified federal employee union leader, CFC participating charity. That's what this is all about. That's what we're doing here today. What we're doing in this year's combined federal campaign, and those emerging leaders in the federal community. The connection between civic advancement and the combined federal campaign is real. And I think you were an perfect example of that, Neha. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Jen?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, just want to open it up for questions from our feds, and thank all of our charities for your time, your commitment to the federal campaign, and for the work you do in our community. You are what it looks like to change the face of human rights in the community that you serve. So thank all of you for being here today. And are there any questions from our federal friends, colleagues on the call today? Feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself at this point.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Okay.
Thank you
you
again. Take
all.
care, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Thanks. Bye.